Alright, guys. In this episode, I'm going to be doing a review on the PlayStation 2, PS2, Ruthless Aggression era video games because these are just some of my favorite wrestling games of all time. I enjoyed them during my high school years. I still enjoy them to this day. I actually prefer these games, over the. I know I might get a lot of heat for this over the N64 games, which were considered some of the best wrestling games of all time, especially, the Aki games, the THQ Aki AKI games like WCW NWO Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, and of course WWF No Mercy. And as great as those games are, I actually prefer the PlayStation 2 titles over those games, simply because they're realistic. They're a lot more faster pace, and I want, like, again, I'm more into, like, a more faster pace. I want something, with realism, good submission system, good grappling system, but at the same time, not completely too slow pace, not like, but and that's one thing I don't like about playing like the AKI games nowadays is they're great games, great wrestling games, but they're slower paced compared to like the PS2 games. And of course, I'm also not going to be reviewing the GameCube or Xbox original Xbox titles because I don't own them. I've only played Day of Reckoning 2, WrestleMania 19. Wasn't a huge fan of WrestleMania 19. Didn't give a shit about it. Day of Reckoning 2 was good, but again, I don't own the game, so I can't really do a review on it. And of course, I hated the original Xbox wrestling games because those games fucking sucked. And basically, this review is going to be covering everything, SmackDown series related, from SmackDown Shut Your Mouth all the way up to SmackDown versus Raw 2007. Um, during the prime of the Ruthless Aggression era. And I'm not going to be covering SmackDown Just Bring It because to me that is an Attitude Era video game. It was a WWF game. It was based on the Attitude Era. The roster had basically all Attitude Era stars. With that said, it was a pretty decent game. Took a lot of my memory card up, which is like why I no longer have it. I barely play it anymore, so that's why I ended up selling it and blah blah blah. I might get it again though, but who knows. So yeah, this review is basically gonna cover everything from SmackDown Shut Your Mouth all the way up to SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. Because to me that was the peak of the Ruthless Aggression era, and that was just some of my favorite games of all time. I really enjoyed those games a lot, especially during my high school years. And, they were just really, really kick ass games. And on that note, let's begin. Um, yeah. First game on the list is SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Um, Excellent game. Excellent game. I rarely go back to it, though. I don't go back to it as much as I do like games like Here Comes the Pain or SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, 2007. And the reason is because the grappling system and the submission system in this game is complete and utter crap. It's just way too arcadey. It's too arcadey for my taste. I love this game though. I really do. I loved it when it first came out too. This was actually one of the games that made me want to get a PS2 because of how interactive a lot of the environments are. The Broiler Room, all the way up to WWF New York, the World, or whatever you want to fucking call it, and the subway. So many backstage areas in this game. They're fucking awesome. I used to love fighting in the subways and stuff like that. This game just had an excellent roster too. I mean, obviously, you look at the cover of the case, you see Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Triple H, Chris Jericho, and Booker T. But this game had like so many wrestlers from like the ECW, WCW Invasion angle. You had like RVD, the Dudley Boys, Raven, Taz, DDP, fucking Billy Kidman. You had like just so many, wrestlers from like that angle of, obviously, of course, let me not forget the NWO. Kevin Nash, Hogan, X Pac, and you got Hogan in both his NWO attire and his red and yellow attire, so that's fucking awesome. You get the Hardy Boys in the game. Of course, you have Edge in the game, Christian in the game. It's just a really stacked roster. The roster is absolutely excellent. Obviously Undertaker too. Can't forget him. There's just so many stars in this game, so many great wrestlers. I can't even list them all. And this game, it had like a really great season. It was like a season that lasted for basically 2 years. You got to edit both Raw and SmackDown to your liking. You could either do the draft pick manually, or you can do it like how they did it on Raw back in 2002, and just call out your draft picks, and then whether you want to draft like Raw or SmackDown didn't matter. And you got to choose like who would be on which show and stuff like that, which was really fucking cool. And that's basically it. You know, this game has some really cool match types. Of course, you had the hardcore match, street fight, false count anywhere, stuff like that. I quit match. Hell in a Cell was finally done right in this game, unlike in Just Bring It. It actually looked like a fucking Hell in a Cell, and not just a steel cage with a roof on top of it. So that was really cool. And I really, really love this game. I still love this game, but I just don't go back to it as much as I do the other games because in my opinion, it's just the grappling system and the submission system and the fact that there's no blood in the game. It just like it pisses me off. It's just I know it was like before all these games started having all these cool features, but I really love a good grappling system. I really love blood and a good submission system. And this game didn't have that. It was just like a really very arcade style game. One of the things that really pissed me off was like, if I gave like, let's say I gave Brock Lesnar like so many specials. I gave him like, so I do like an F5 to him like 2 times. I would just pin my opponent and that would be it. Like the opponent wouldn't even kick out. Like in SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, like if you give someone an F5 twice, they'll kick out, if they're not damaged. If they're damaged, then yeah, they won't kick out. But if they're not and that just made the game better in my opinion. I mean, I kind of like the quickness of this game. Like if I was really bored and wanted like just a quick fix of an old school wrestling game, I mean, this would be it. I mean, this game had a lot of cool features, but I just don't go back and play this game as much as I do like the other games in the series. But yeah, I mean that's basically it. And one other cool thing I liked about this game was the fact that you got to, climb the SmackDown fist. And basically, like I remember having a match with RVD versus Jeff Hardy. And in the match, I was Rob Van Dam, and I basically climbed up the SmackDown fist and did a 5-star frog splash on Jeff Hardy, which was really cool. And it was just one of the reasons why I love this game, because it was just like so fucking cool. So I mean, it was just fucking hardcore. It was just really cool feature to put in the game. You could climb the fucking fist. But yeah, I mean, this game had a lot of cool stuff to it, but it's just I really it's the game I least go back to. Simply because the gameplay isn't as like solid as like the future titles. I mean, but it's still a good game. I definitely recommend it if you've never played it. And that's basically it. All right, next game on the list, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. This is my favorite game in the SmackDown series. Favorite Ruthless Aggression era video game, bar none, whether it be on PS2, GameCube, or Xbox. And this is just the best. This game is just amazing. It's like all the good stuff that was in SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, it's in this game. But it has a way better grappling system, submission system, and of course it has blood in it. This game also is the first game to have the Elimination Chamber match, which is a huge one of my favorites, one of my personal favorites in any WWE video game, even up to this day with 2K14 and 2K15. But I do play 2K14 more than 15, so yeah. And this game is just amazing. I mean, I love the roster in this game. The roster was just fucking biblical. I mean, you had like so many. I mean, of course, from Brock Lesnar to Rey Mysterio, Undertaker, Old School and American Badass. RVD, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Rock, Austin. It's so many wrestlers in this game. Eddie Guerrero, the serial killer, the murderer. I can't mention, Kurt Angle. It's even guys who are very underrated. Guys from like OVW, of course, Orton. Um, Cena made this is like his first SmackDown game. Um, so many. Like the world's greatest tag team, Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Haas. Edge, Christian. There's too many people in this game to list. The Dudley Boys, too many. Too many. I can't name them all. And there's a lot of really cool legends like, the Road Warriors, aka Legion of Doom, Roddy Piper, and it's a cool. This game had a sick roster. I mean, I can't even talk. I'll be here all night. The roster is excellent. Just take my word for it. It's excellent. It's fucking biblical. This is the best wrestling game ever. Like, the bra and panties match was fucking awesome. You had that glitch where if you gave a diva like the people's elbow, she'll take off her bra and panties, which was fucking sick. It was gnarly as hell. You know, again, you had so many kick-ass backstage areas. Not as many as in Shut Your Mouth, though. But still, again, I thought the backstage areas in this game were actually better. Because, it was just some really cool stuff. I mean, you could jump off of WWF New York in Times Square. You could ride around on the motorcycle and drag people and stuff. You can just it was the backstage areas in my opinion in this game were better. Um, but I think SmackDown. I mean, I did miss the ones in Shut Your Mouth. 'Cause Shut Your Mouth had more backstage areas, but this game I feel like the backstage areas were better because the activeness, the the inter the backstage areas were much more interactive, if I could put it that way. And it was just really fucking cool. You know, um, again, this was like the last. Oh yeah, Goldberg was in this game. Scott Steiner. Again, too many people in the name, and that was just like one of the big selling point for me because I was just a huge Goldberg mark, and just seeing guys like Scott Steiner, Goldberg in this game from WCW, it was just fucking awesome. Season mode was just as good. It was a little shorter than Shut Your Mouth season mode, but it was still fucking awesome. You got to make your own decisions in the season mode, which, yeah, you make your own decisions. Then, it affected like your gameplay, like the outcome of the game and stuff like that. Excellent game. Probably the only bad thing about this game that I could think of is the fact that you can't fight for the championships, the titles, and exhibition mode, which is something you could do in like the WWE 13, 2K14, and even in SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, 2007, you could fight for the titles in exhibition mode. In this game, you can't do that. You can only fight for them in season mode, which pissed me off. Same thing with Shut Your Mouth. You couldn't fight for the titles in exhibition mode, which fucking pissed me off because that was like the best. I mean, you could have titles in exhibition mode. That's fucking awesome. I mean, that would have made this game have even more replay value, in my opinion. It would have been fucking excellent. But it's still an excellent game, my favorite in the series, and I definitely recommend it if you are huge into like the Ruthless Aggression era and huge into wrestling video games as a whole. It's an excellent game. That's basically all I have to say. All right, the next game in the list is SmackDown vs. Raw, the original SmackDown vs. Raw. This is the first in the SmackDown vs. Raw series, the continuation of the SmackDown series. Um, and honestly, I found this game to be a disappointment, but I still enjoyed it a lot. I do think people give this game a lot of crap because the roster isn't as good as Here Comes the Pain's roster or Shut Your Mouth's roster. But I actually enjoyed the roster. It was the first game in the series to have Bret Hart, which he left WWE back in 1997, and to have Bret Hart in a wrestling game for the first time in God knows how many years, since like the probably the N64 or the PS1. I mean, yeah, I know he was in Legends of Wrestling, but those games sucked. We all know those games have shitty controls. Those games fucking suck. And this, for him to be like a playable character in this game, and it was just really awesome because I got to do a lot of matches that I wanted to do. I got to have like Bret Hart versus Rob Van Dam, Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle. There was a lot more legends too. Like Mankind was in the game. Um, you had old school Undertaker, Kane with the mask from the Attitude Era. Um, there's a lot of cool superstars in this game. It had a decent roster. It wasn't as bad as people say it was. This was like the last game too to have like the Dudley Boys in it, because the Dudley Boys would go on to go to TNA, and ironically enough, Bubba Ray, Bully Ray came back last night at the Royal Rumble. He was actually a participant in the Royal Rumble, but yeah, I mean, basically, this game was actually pretty good. The season mode was actually pretty good. I didn't like the voice overs. I thought that they were very what's the word? It just didn't fit. It didn't sync. Like it felt like someone was like recording their voice and pasting it onto the game. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it was actually on the show or anything like that. It just felt weird. If anybody who plays this game knows, like, the voiceovers in this game were like really fucking weird. Um, that's basically it. I mean, I can't really say anything else about this game. It did keep the same gameplay from Here Comes the Pain. So if you're a fan of that, the Here Comes the Pain, fuck, the Here Comes the Pain gameplay engine, then definitely play this game because it has the same engine, basically same gameplay. But I didn't like the mini games. The mini games were very annoying. Like the mini games where you would start the match and you would have to do these little. It was just stupid. It was just, I don't like that in the wrestling game personally. So I didn't like it. Um, and the backstage areas are pretty much gone in this game. I mean, you do have the parking lot brawl. You do have like a few backstage brawls. Um, but it's like nothing compared to like Shut Your Mouth or Here Comes the Pain, which is kind of a disappointment. But at the time of this game's release, during like the peak of the Ruthless Aggression era, they didn't go backstage as much, if not at all anymore. I mean, there was no more hardcore division. There was no more hardcore title, no more 24/7 rule. So, like, whenever they went backstage, it would be like for an interview, or, if a superstar wanted to talk to, like, the general manager, like Kurt Angle or Eric Bischoff or something like that. So, they didn't go backstage that much anymore. So, it wasn't like a huge big deal. It wasn't like the Attitude Era or the earlier part of the Ruthless Aggression Era where they went backstage a lot. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't a huge deal at this point. But if you were an old school fan who loved like the backstage areas, then yeah, you kind of, I know you were probably pissed off with this game, because yeah, it didn't have them. But yeah, this game was good in its own right. I don't. Again, I mean, if you want to compare it to the other games, and yeah, it was a huge disappointment. But on its own, it was a really fucking great game, and that's basically all I have to say about that. All right, SmackDown versus Raw 2006. This is a game that I was actually spending a lot of hours with, simply because you can, for the first time since WWF No Mercy, you can fight for the titles in exhibition mode. The roster is amazing. I mean, it's. I don't want to say it's better than the original SmackDown versus Raw's roster, but I do think that there are a lot of really cool key players that are in this game that weren't in SmackDown versus Raw. Obviously, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin are in this game. They weren't in SmackDown versus Raw, the first one. So yeah. I mean, obviously, the Rocks. You got the Rock again. You got Mass Kane again. Um, you got like British Bulldogs in this game, which is fucking awesome. You have Bret Hart returns. A lot of really great wrestlers from my childhood in this game, and as well as from the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era. So it's a really great mix, really great roster. Obviously the cover has Batista and John Cena on the cover. This was like, when this game came out, these guys were like really popular in WWE at that point. Um, One I was actually a huge fan of, that was Batista, and at the time, because I thought he was just a real badass. I thought he had a cool look. He looked like a fucking anime character. He looked like a badass anime character or something, a guy out of a comic book. He was just really ripped. He had some really cool tattoos. He was just a badass, man. He had a cool look. It was a um, great physique and stuff like that. He wasn't the best wrestler, wasn't the best big man wrestler, but I was just a huge Batista fan, because he had that cool edgy, he just had that look. He had that anime look to him. He just looked like something he reminded me of Akuma from Street Fighter. And that's one of the reasons why I was just a huge fan of him. And the irony of that is, I got into wrestling because I thought Yokozuna was E Honda from Street Fighter, and I just thought it was so cool to have like a sport that people got to beat the shit out of each other for, shit out of each other in. And obviously watching WWF, and then, long story short, started getting in WCW, ECW, all that good stuff, TNA, all that good stuff, and became a lifelong wrestling fan because of that, because of Yokozuna, and me thinking that he was E Honda from Street Fighter. Um, but yeah, long story short, let me get back into the review of the game. The game itself is fucking awesome. This actually, it's like I think this game kind of started from the ground up. It's much more realistic. This game actually plays more like WWE Day of Reckoning 2 for the GameCube, because the submission system and stuff like that, it's like this game is a lot more like realistic. It tries much more to be more of a technical wrestling game compared to like the previous titles that were much more arcadey. Um, but yeah, this like the gameplay is still very good. The roster is excellent. Everyone from like Rob Van Dam to Batista to The Undertaker to Randy Orton to JBL to Kurt Angle to Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H. It's a great roster. It's a fucking awesome roster. I was having like a lot of really cool matches in this game. Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, redoing it's a great game. Great roster. Season mode is much better than last year. Well, the year previous to this game, the original SmackDown versus Raw. The season mode is way better. The voiceovers actually sound like they're like on the show. It doesn't sound like they actually recorded it and and then they put it. This actually sounds real. Like the presentation in this game is much better, much more realistic. It's just a better game in general, in my opinion, than the original SmackDown versus Raw. But it's just what was I gonna say? It's really good. It's just a really great game. You get to unlock the legends, some really cool legends. Gameplay is really good. Season mode's actually good. The season mode doesn't really let you make your own choices compared to like the previous games, but I mean you can still make it like your own, a few of your own choices. Um, like yeah, like even like in this game, like when Teddy Long gets hit by a car, they try to find out who it is. If the Undertaker, you get to choose like who you think is guilty, Rob Van Dam or John Cena. Yeah, it's all that good shit. It's a great game, great gameplay. First game in a long time where you can fight for the titles in exhibition mode, which is a plus for me because I love doing that. I love creating my own matches and fighting for the titles. So, that's one of the reasons why I love playing this game, and I still play this game to this day. It's a great game, and I recommend it if you're huge into wrestling. If you're into like the more of the technical No Mercy, WCW Revenge, Day of Reckoning 2, if you're into those types of games, I definitely recommend getting this if you're just getting into the SmackDown series because this has gameplay that's much more similar to that style. If that's more of your liking with like the strong and weak grapples and submission systems and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend this game if you're into that kind of stuff. It's like a much more revamped gameplay, and it's really great. It's awesome, and I don't even know what else to say. All right, next game, and this is the last game in the series because I am not going to review SmackDown vs. Raw 2008. That game sucked dick. It was a piece of shit. It was garbage. This game, however, was in my opinion, up until WWE 13, this was like the last WWE game that I actually really enjoyed. And I just stopped playing WWE games after 2008. After SmackDown versus Raw 2008, I stopped playing them. And, I just took a break. I would always go back to playing these games, to get my wrestling fix. Because I wasn't interested in getting 2009. Because I heard all those games had like the same grapple system. Where you use the right analog stick to grapple, which pissed me off. That was a huge turnoff for me. I really hated that. I was used to the face buttons, so I thought that was just really fucking stupid to like for them to make. You have to use the right analog stick just to do like strong and weak grapples. It was just stupid to me. Um, SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 was the first to start that trend. However, you can change the controls back to the standard controls from SmackDown vs. Raw 2006. So, if you want like those easy controls and stuff like that, you got them in this game. Um, the gameplay is really awesome. A lot of really great legends in this game, like Bam Bam Bigelow. You got Taz in this game. I remember having like a really sick Extreme Rules match with Rob Van Dam, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Taz. which led me to another really cool thing about this game, like how you can. This is the first game since Just Bring It where you could fight in the crowd again. Well, not technically, not really, but yeah, in the crowd again. Like I basically jumped off was that sound stage onto Taz when he was on a table. You could create some really cool hardcore memories with this game. It's really good. Again, definitely recommend it if you're into if you like SmackDown vs. Raw 2006. I would definitely recommend this game because while I don't think it's as good as 2006, I do think it has some really cool legends. You got like Finley and he's in the game, Fit Finley. You got like a lot of really cool, WCW wrestlers, ECW wrestlers. Um, yeah, I mean, like, standard. Like, you got like Randy Orton, Edge, RVD, Undertaker, Kane, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Rock, Austin. A lot of really great wrestlers in this game, great roster. And, it's basically the same thing as SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, though. Like, it's basically the same exact game, except, like, they added, that feature where you get to fight in the crowd. And, of course, the fact that you have to do grappling, like, weak and strong grapples with the right analog stick. And that pissed me off, but I just switched it back to the old controls because I thought it was stupid. Another thing to note is that this is the first game in the series to be released on the Xbox 360, and I actually owned that version first before I ended up getting the PS2 version. The reason I got the Xbox 360 version, obviously at the time I had a 360. I thought the graphics looked better, the sweat and all that crap. So I ended up getting it for the 360. Lo and behold, I get the fucking Red Ring of Death. Because Microsoft makes shitty fucking consoles. So I ended up getting this game for the PS2. And this is actually after playing SmackDown versus Raw 2008 for the PS2. This is the last PS2 game that they actually put effort into, you know, before they actually went to like the PS3 and the 360. This is actually the PS2 version looks really good. I mean, if you like the graphics for SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, you're gonna love the graphics in this game because they're just as good, if not better, at sometimes. With like certain wrestlers actually look better, but it's a great game. Um, season mode, same thing as 2006. Basically, roster's great. One thing I didn't talk about with any of these games is the call modes, the create a wrestler. Reason I don't talk about that is because I hate create a wrestler. I just really, I'm not into that. I'm just not into that type of stuff. I used to create wrestlers in like the older N64 games, but I just don't care for that. Create a wrestler. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, to me, it's like a big waste of time. You're gonna, it's to me, it's just a waste of time. I mean, I rather, because whenever I create a wrestler in a video game, it never looks like the wrestler anyway. It looks like the wrestler to a certain extent, but not really. And I prefer like authenticity in games. I want something that's gonna be like authentic. I don't want like to create like in perfect example, WWE 2K14, where I had to basically, I didn't create RVD, but I ended up downloading him off of the community, the creations community creations, and Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good, but again, I have no time for the creator wrestler. That shit takes too long. It's too fucking time consuming. I don't feel like being bothered with any of that shit. It doesn't look realistic anyway. It always looks like creator wrestler looks like creator wrestler. So, I just don't fucking care about that shit. To me, I don't care. It's again, I just don't care. I rather like the wrestlers be made by the developers, so they can look like authentic, and they can actually look like themselves in real life. And that's just it. That's what I think. That's my review on the Ruthless Aggression era video games for the PS2. What are your favorite wrestling video games? What's your favorite game from the WWE Ruthless Aggression era? Leave a comment, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. And that's it. All right. I'm actually about to go play some more of these great PS2 games. Later.